Hello and good evening, everyone, and welcome back to ForcedGamersDnD. This evening, I am joined by Roald, who is playing
Hello.
Akira in the campaign, and tonight we're going to continue our building Aeternia, and this time we've talked about geography, we've talked about the Pantheon, and this time we'll be talking about a very recent historic event, the fall of the Elder Dragons. But before that, a few announcements real quick. We started this stream because we wanted to support a local game store, the Game Force in Eindhoven, the Netherlands. You can find links to our social, our Facebook, Discord. I added a link to our store website as well, where you can find the agenda for events and stuff like that. You can find all that on the info page. We have magic events on Fridays and Saturdays and Wednesdays as well, I believe now.
Thursdays.
Oh yeah, Thursdays. Thursdays have Yu-Gi-Oh! And Modern. I believe Pokemon is coming back. Warhammer is being played. So a lot of nerdy things to
Also, the new
enjoy.
TCG Flesh and Blood will be played every other Thursday as well.
Oh, that's very nice. Nice.
Because they
And
were, they were due to planning issues with the modern community. They took that spot, so
okay,
there's no magic on Thursday at the moment.
okay. Um, of
But the
course.
boss is looking into the agenda to see how we can fit it all in, so
All
to
right.
say.
Of course, every Thursday we have our one-shot evening where we have a couple of DMs who run one-shots for tables. There are still a few spots left on Pip's table next Thursday. You know Pip, he plays Corcusson in our campaign. He will be DMing a one-shot as well. I will be DMing a one-shot where the players will be playing as the monsters in a dungeon. Spots were like reserved within 24 hours, so I don't have any spots left, unfortunately.
To be quite frank, there's one spot left at Pip's table.
Really? Oh, that's going fast. There were like 4 spots left this morning. So if you are near us, join the links in this in or on our Twitch info page and reserve that last spot and come play with us. Entry fee to the store is €5 plus a mandatory €2.50 consumption ticket, which can be used for any visit that you come to the store. Basically, everyone buys a drink anyway, so it's not like you're losing money or anything, and you can keep the ticket for other visits as well. And yeah, I wasn't here last week for campaign session because work-related issues. We've had a few sick people because Corona is a bitch, and but we will be continuing as scheduled next week with our next session, and hopefully, if he finally sends me his character, we will be joined by a new fifth player. So what he's going to do and who he is, we'll find out next week. And yeah,
Yes.
that's basically it. For the month of August,
Mm.
I will be trying to plan everything outside of streaming time so that we can still stream. But I will be moving during the month of August. I have a new apartment for myself, and because maybe things like internet are a little bit slowed down. If I will be able to stream like on the first day or not, if I have internet, yes or no. I hope I will. But please keep in contact with our socials, our Discord, and we'll notify you if anything weird comes up. But for now, we'll be streaming as scheduled every Monday at 8 p.m. Central European Standard Time. So, with that out of the way, lots of talking. Let's talk about Elder Dragons. You've heard me naming them a few times already. Basically, before the events of the current campaign, there were 10 Elder Dragons that ruled over the continent since the Duskfall, which is the magical disappearance of darkness, about a 550 or so years ago. And since then, 10 elder dragons emerged from the dragon's teeth north of the continent, and kind of warred with each other and divided the continent into territories. So, one thing of note, very, very recently, Fistband's Menagerie of Dragons was announced, bringing with it a slew of new dragon types, namely the gem dragons. Out of the top of my head, they're like Topaz, Crystal, Sapphire, and two other ones. I don't remember. Because I don't want to start retconning anything, there are no Elder Dragons for those 5 types of dragons. However, I want to try to find a way to incorporate them in the campaign anyway, but maybe as a future edition, like an emergence of some kind. I'm not sure yet. But for now, no gem dragons yet. But I think they're cool. They look great. I've seen some artwork already of the cover art and stuff like that. But for now, no gem dragons yet, unfortunately. That's a bit of a problem if they keep adding lore after you've already created something. So for now, let's just talk chromatic and metallic dragons. So there are 5 chromatic elders, 5 metallic elders, just basic colors: black, green, white, blue, and red for chromatic. And for metallic is brass, bronze, silver, gold, and copper.
Yeah.
And currently, most of them are dead, except for a few, but we'll come to that in a moment. So after the Duskfall, these 10 dragons, they warred with each other. The 5 chromatics, I leaned a bit more on the good versus evil in these dragons, as the chromatic dragons are more inherently evil. The chromatic are more inherently evil. The metallics are more inherently good aligned. So the metallics were really peaceful. They were more in harmony with their community. However, after a point, even metallics were being persecuted by humankind. Because, well, basically, people thought dragons were scum, and anything related to dragon was scum. So what happened is, after the Duskfall, dragons just ruled the continent. They were dictators, even the metallics. However, they were in more peaceful harmony. However, in the year 213 AD, which is the start of the Second Era, there is a happening that is called the Planar Breach. Up until this point, only divine magic was possible, divine magic granted by the gods. However, due to this breach, sort of a rift between the elemental planes and the Feywild Shadowfell material plane, arcane magic became a possibility. People started being born with innate magical abilities. Other people that had a knack for it started studying the arcane, and with this, rebellion started to grow. And with rebellion against the dragons, slowly rebellious factions started to pop up here and there. The dragons, of course, try to put them down any way they could. Some of the metallics even started rousing up the rebellions to have them fight against the chromatics. They were kind of using these rebellious thoughts to slay the chromatic elders, and not in a way to like, we want to conquer this continent, but more in a way the chromatics were like real tyrants. They were warring with each other the entire time, fighting for territory. So that took about 300 years of arcane studies before the first elder was slain. And let's go over the elders real quick, who they are, what the territory was, and their names and stuff. So for the chromatics, we have Sepulchrum. He is the tender of graves, and he is the elder black dragon. and he reigned over most of the northern part of the continent, mostly around Devil's Tongue and the surrounding areas. And his lair is an unknown place deep within the swamps there. He's a nasty bugger. I mean, black dragons, for the most part, are some of the more powerful ones. And yeah, he was just like most of the elders, most of the chromatic elders. He was just an outright asshole. There is Fulgur, the Living Tempest. He is the elder blue dragon, and his territory was the lands west of the Murkosh mountain range, all the way down into the Red Sea. And his lair is where now the city of Golan is being built. And there's Arborus, the Blooming Tyrant. He was the elder green dragon. Her territory was in the woods of Ascalon and some of the surrounding areas, and her lair was built in the canopy of the World Tree. So we had this large map, big ass forest on the more eastern side of the continent, and there's this giant tree that just towers atop of the forest, and she built her lair in the canopy of it.
Okay.
There is Galus.
Probably misspelling all these names, but
I can type them in chat if you want to, so people, you know, I come up with weird ass names all the time, so I get that most of the time they get misspelled just on hearing, especially if English is not your first language. So there's Sepulchrum, Tender of Graves, Fulgur, Living Tempest, Arborus, the Blooming Tyrant, Galus, the Raging Blizzard. Galus is the Elder White Dragon, and her territory is in the Iron Mountains, which is the southernmost mountain range of the continent. And her lair is built just somewhere deep within the mountainside. She's not very intelligent. She's like this primal hunter. And her main prey of food was giants. She loved to hunt giants. It was a real sport for her. And last of the chromatics, there is Murkosh, the Cascading Inferno. And the Murkosh mountain range was named after him, actually, as that was his territory. And he didn't really keep a lair. If he had a lair, it would be Widow's Peak, which is now an inert volcano. It used to be an active volcano, but since Murkosh's death, it became inert. You may notice these dragons all have Latin names, except for Murkosh, which doesn't really have a meaning. And that's basically because Murkosh is a name I came up with a long, long time ago. Someone was at my door. Alright, no problem. But Murkosh is a name I randomly came up with like years and years and years ago, which kind of started my obsession. Yeah, it kind of not really an obsession, but it started my fantasy thing. I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something. I was still in like lower school. Maybe I was even a little bit younger. I had this babysitter who was a really good drawer. She could really draw well, and she drew a dragon for me, a red dragon, and she gave it a name, and the name just stuck with me, and that's kind of what started my thing with fantasy, that and Harry Potter. So that's a name I wanted to use somewhere, and all the other dragons are just Latin names because I love Latin as a language to just start naming random stuff.
That's very true. Most people just don't know what it means, and it sounds
exactly. It sounds fancy. It sounds good. It sounds fantasy-like.
Yep.
Like Fulgur just literally means lightning. Arborus means trees. It's so
Yeah.
stupid, but it works. And it's fun.
Arborus was the one that I recognized, but
Yeah. Yeah, and Sepulchrum is something like it's not death, it's more um um I can Google it real quick. I believe it was like
a place of burial, a tomb.
yeah, I
Something
believe
like
so. Yeah. So he's basically his name is basically Grave Tender of Graves, just like Fort Imperius is translated to Fort Fort. Just all these moon kind of names. I just love it, but they sound really good.
Yeah.
So those are the metallic, the chromatics, and then we have the metallics. So we start with the brass one. Her name is Ahennis. She is Ahennis the Dreamer. Her territory enveloped most of the Red Sea, and her lair was built deep in the Tirana Canyon.
What was her color again? Sorry.
She's brass.
Brass.
Yes. Let's see. Then there is Arum the Abhorrent. He is the bronze one, and his territory resides over most of the Golothon archipelago, with his lair hidden somewhere deep along the coastal caves of Everest, which is one of the 7 islands. His body can still be found somewhere off the coast of Fort Imperius, but we'll get to that in a moment. So yeah, he was also one of the first slain, so that's kind of the reason why the Golothon archipelago was such a haven for people fleeing the continent, fleeing the dragon wars and stuff like that, because Golothon was one of the first areas to be cleared of dragons. So it became kind of a haven for refugees.
A safe haven, okay.
Then there is Ares the Cautious. He's the Elder Copper Dragon, and his territory resided over most of the inland parts of the continent. He had a lair, but it is now completely destroyed, as it was within what is now called the Scorched Flats, which is where Murkosh fought his final battle. Then there's Argentum, the Sightless. His territory was a very small territory on most of the eastern part of the Iron Mountains and the Fanglands. However, his lair was never discovered, and he is called the Sightless because he's blind. Very original.
Just for administration purposes, what was the color? The color again?
Argentum is silver.
Silver.
Yes. Yeah, it was called the Sightless because he was blind. He lived very secluded. He had a territory, but he didn't have like human armies or something to defend it. He was very secluded, very alone. And last one, we have Arum the Dormant. And he's the Elder Gold Dragon, and her territory resided over most of the land east of the Escalon Woods. And her lair is where Dragon's Gate is now built, near one of the bigger lakes of the area. And yeah, my naming thingy for these 5 was correlated names started with an A that connected them to the metal that they represent.
I thought so. At least I knew that Argentum was some kind of silver.
Yeah, and the other 4 are Arum is gold. I believe gold.
Arum is the name for gold in the periodic table.
It is. Yes, it is. That's kind of where it started. I started with Aurum, and then I started looking at the other ones, and then Argentum was silver, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna find names that start with an A that have a meaning of the color that this dragon is.
Oh, cool.
So those are 10 buddies. So the chromatics, very bad. The metallics tried to be good, but humankind was like, you know what? All dragons are bad. Anything related to dragons is bad. So at the early stages of the rebellion, there were hunting parties already hunting for things like wyverns and drakes and stuff like that, like smaller dragon kind. Younger dragons as well, like wormlings and stuff like that. We weren't really able to defend themselves properly. Like the big elder dragons, they had armies they could command. But the smaller ones with like territories within the territories, they didn't really have much to say or anything. So they couldn't really defend themselves. So first short-stop rebellions would take care of most of those. Things like capturing Dragonborn and Lizard Folk wasn't really a thing yet until the Elder Dragons started warring with each other, and most Dragonborn and Lizard Folk started siding with the dragons. So it kind of became humankind, like elves, dwarves, and all the other likes, against Dragonkin. That's kind of where the hate for most Dragonborn and stuff still comes from. But the death of the elders starts with 2 of the metallic ones. So 3 out of 10 are still alive somewhere. They don't hold territory anymore, or not directly. And the 3 that are still alive are some of them are 3 metallic dragons, as they have the ability to shape change and have a little bit easier time to hide themselves among humanity. The 3 that are still alive are Eris, Argentum, and Arum. So the silver, gold, and copper one.
Silver, gold, and
copper.
Copper.
Yeah, those 3 are still alive. Ahanis and Araman are both dead. Ahanis was a very curious type, and when arcane magic first started, he helped his settlements and his followers to build the Obsidian Tower, what would become the center of Arcona in the middle of the Red Sea. And this became a little bit of a school for mages, not a very big one like Frostmaw, but a smaller one. And it's this big, gigantic Obsidian Tower. However, that kind of created his own demise as well, as he kind of gave his people the tools to find and study, and eventually they would kill him, as he was asleep, as she was asleep in her lair, and an expedition group just from the Obsidian Tower just raided her lair and killed her in her sleep, just without her any chance of defending herself. And Araman kind of met a similar demise, as he helped the people of Fort Castra and Fort Imperium, which weren't really forts yet, but he started helping them build up the arcane cannons. He was kind of the inventor of the arcane cannons and helped the artificers of these cities to build them. And on a test run, he flew across the skyline of Fort Imperis, and they just promptly shot him down. Just off the coast, they just shot him out of the air. They blasted him with arcane energy, and he just died crashing into the waves. And his body can still be found there. So if the party like ever wants to go to Fort Imperus, and they decide, walk across a seabed or something, or the sea floor, they could find his skeleton down there somewhere.
If we can still breathe underwater somehow.
Yeah. I mean, it's a level 2 spell, I believe, out of the top of my head.
4.
So 4, really? Oh, that's high. Yeah, you'll not be able to do that yet, but maybe in the future. But yeah, his body can still be found there. Like there has been some diving expeditions to like take up some of the bones, make materials out of it, study them, stuff like that. But most of his corpse is still intact at the bottom of the sea. So after these 2 were killed, the other 3 metallic elders went into hiding. They shape-changed themselves into just ordinary people, lived in secluded areas, and they just vanished off the map. And there are still groups, the hunting parties and stuff like that, scholars, expeditioners, who are trying to find these last 3 elders, as humanity is still really afraid that they in some way would emerge and would start killing or start trying to take back territory and become tyrants again. So they want to try to be they want to try to stop that before it happening. But because of this, so there are 2 dead metallics. The other 3 have disappeared. A lot of territory just became free real estate. And it is currently the year 535 AD, which is like in the last 20 or so years of the Second Era. Let's see. Ahenus died in 534, so it's currently the year 576. Now that we went 2 years back into the past, it's 576. So the first elder died 42 years ago. So it's been a while, and it will take a while before the last elder is killed as well. So territories became free real estate, and the Chromatics decided...
42 years ago, Nick?
Yeah, Ahenus died 42 years ago. And Murkosh would die 23 years ago, which would start the Third Era with his death. So it's a period of... quick maps. No, Murkosh died 21 years ago. So it took about 20 years from the death of the first to the death of the last one, which was about 20 years of just all-out war between the Chromatics and stuff like that, fighting over territories. So the Chromatics went all-out war with each other, but amongst the armies, rebellious factions started to rise up more and more and more prominent, like actual war leaders and archmages, people who have been training and studying for years and years and years, finally started having a chance to deal with these big bads, as we haven't been able to for like the last 550 years or so. And there are a few among them which can be named because they had a very prominent role in most of the demise of the last 5. There is Chrysos. I will type it in chat because names are hard sometimes. And he's an elven man. He created or established Frostmoor Academy, and is kind of its headmaster, and he trains mages there, who would later become teachers as well at the school. And he created a lot of magical studies on the dragons as well. And he would lead, he wouldn't lead real armies, but like he would train mages and send them across the continent to help out anywhere that they could against fights against bigger armies and against the elders as well. In the western lands, there is a large army being built by a man named Kanrin, who is a minotaur, and he doesn't have any magical capabilities whatsoever. He's just a big guy with a big army and a big ass attitude for killing dragons.
Big dude with big eggs.
He does have an
That's
axe.
the right description,
Yeah,
right?
kind of. So the day you will meet him, you might actually recognize him. I'm not gonna say anything more about it, but you might recognize him if you see him.
Okay.
In the more central parts of the continent, there is a man called Udel. And he was kind of a war leader among the armies of Ares, the Copper Dragon. His family would later establish the city of Miotar, and his sigil would be that of a dragon. However, for some reason, people just kind of let them, even though he was a human. He would turn against the dragons, but he was a man who had great respect for these beasts that ruled the continent for 550 years. You can't just start killing something that has been ruling your lives for so long and not have respect for it. And he was kind of in that mindset. He also had a friend called Ambrose.
I think I can write it. Ambrose, okay, not Ambrose, okay.
And Ambrose was an archmage. He was a very powerful mage. And together, they were friends. They would establish Miotar, one of the bigger settlements currently that is still thriving. Let's see. Then there are the tribes of the Red Sea, which are more of the bestial tribes like bugbears, orcs, stuff like that. They would mostly keep themselves out of conflict, except when fights would break out around their borders with the white and the blue dragon. And then there are the dwarven tribes of the mountains, who kind of were in the same vibe, except that they were living inside territories that were still being ruled. The dwarves of the Iron Mountains would later be led by a storm giant named Wolnir, who would lead them against Galus. And of course, the elven tribes of the Escalon forests. They fought in the wars against Arborus. So it would take a while before the next dragons would be killed, because now that territories were being fought over, the dragons were aware of what was happening. It would take about, let's see, it would take 8 years before the next elder dragon would be killed, which was Fulgur. And only just shortly after Galus as well. Fulgur Fulgur and his armies were being driven deep within his territories near the plateau that would later that would be his lair, and later where Golan would be built. And in a final showdown deep in his lair, there was Tesseri, which was the second in command to Kunrin. He would sacrifice himself deep within the lair of the Elder Dragon, collapse the tunnels, and kill the beast. Excavations are still ongoing to find back the tunnels that would lead deep into his lair, as it's just one giant maze circling around in and on itself. And Tesseri's body has never been found. up until, and the dragon's body as well. So the assumption, because he didn't come back or anything to fight another war, the assumption is that Fulgur is dead, but there is no confirmation. So so as long as they are not sure, they will just keep digging and digging beneath the city that now resides there, until they have full confirmation that this dragon is dead. Because blue dragons have the ability to burrow and such as well, so they're still kind of afraid that one day he will just burst up from the ground, tear the entire city apart, and start being a tyrant again.
Okay.
So yeah, he was killed in 542 AD, the same year as Galus. Also, interestingly enough, the same year the Fair Maiden's Voyage sank. And after the death of these two dragons, most of the western lands of the continent were now free of dragon rule. So transportation and travel across these lands became a lot easier to send refugees to the Golotan archipelago. This also meant that slave trade to the western lands started picking up, as it was now easier to transport those as well. Just prisoners of war and stuff like that were just transported all over the place. Galus was killed by Wulnir and his armies deep within the mountains. And Wulnir actually used the bones of Galus to build a brand new spanking throne for himself, deep within Ironforge, which is the biggest dwarven settlement in the Iron Mountains. And the dwarves kind of swapped one tyrant for another, because Galus, big ass dragon, really bad, but he was kind of the tyrant in a way that, if you didn't do what he liked, he would just kill you, but he wasn't really a ruler, so he didn't force you to do anything. It was just like constant terror of being killed if you didn't do what he liked. Wulnir, however, was a very smart storm giant, and he became a tyrant in as much a way as the dragon was, and he currently still is. So the dwarves of the Iron Mountains, yeah, they swapped one tyrant for another, and they're not really happy with it, so there's still some tumultuous going on there. Let's see, then it would take 3 more years before the next one would be killed. We are now in the year 545 AD, and the next one is Sepulchrum, who would be killed, the Black Dragon in Devil's Tongue. And with his death, basically, the Red Dragon, Murkosh, he ruled over the mountainside. On the western side, Fulgur was already dead, so he tried to expand that way. Now on the east side, Sepulchrum would die, Murkosh would start creating a territory there. Murkosh was one that he wanted everything, and now that humankind was basically doing the work for him, he just started expanding. And Sepulchrum was actually killed by his own army. The lizard folk tribes in Devil's Tongue, they decided that they noticed that Dragonborn and stuff like that were being captured in war, but outside of war as well, being sold as slaves to mines, working in camps, stuff like that.
Yep.
And they decided, you know what, we want to go against this. We'll side with you guys, and we're going to prove that by killing this Elder Dragon. And they did.
Yeah.
They
And in one of those expeditions trying to kill the dragon is when Akira lost his party.
No, that's a little bit later.
That's a little
bit later. That's an expedition
sorry.
against another black dragon. Yes, but that black dragon is a younger kin of Sepulchrum. Sepulchrum died in 545, so your character is around 30, right?
Yeah.
So this would be around the time you were. Let's see, it's 576. So this would be a year before you were born.
Okay.
So it's a year after a war, so that makes you a boomer.
Yeah, I
Sort
guess
of.
so. Yeah,
Sort of.
my character is pretty much a boomer, so.
I hadn't really thought of that yet. You're a boomer. Nice.
Most of the time, acts like that, not knowing what technology is and some kind of famous dishes,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
However, killing Sepulchrum didn't give them any sort of freedom back whatsoever. Humanity was like, you know what? Great, you killed your own tyrant. You've still fought us over the last 20 or so years, and you're still dragonkin. So they still started capturing the lizard folk of Devilstone, and they had to flee deep within the marshlands and get into hiding, as they were still being persecuted, unfortunately.
Yep.
So they decided to do the good thing in the end, but like one good deed against like 1,000 bad ones.
Are still best one. Still worse. There are still worse things they did to the humanity than the good things.
So then it's another 5 years before Arborus is killed, and the elven tribes managed to finally raise a large enough army underneath Gardena, which is spelled like this. She's the elven leader. She currently still is. She's still alive. She's like maybe 110 years old. So she'll go along for quite a while. Furthermore, but they finally managed to kill Arborus deep within the canopy of the World Tree, and but because of Arborus's death, you know that when a dragon has a lair somewhere, the lair and the surrounding areas start to manifest some of the dragon's power and capabilities. Like where a red dragon lives, most of the time a volcano at some point will be
Erupt.
will erupt. Like black dragons, poisonous swamps, and stuff like that. With Arborus's death, her blood seeping all across the World Tree, there is a rot within the World Tree that like 1/5 of its canopy, if you would look up to it, is just leafless, rotten, just dead. And there is this corruption within the World Tree currently, which is very, very slowly expanding across its branches. And the Elven tribes are trying something to stop it, but currently nothing is really working. So, killing the dragons, you're free of your tyrant, but it has some effects on the world you're living in as well. Like, you've been living with this beast for 550 years, and because of its death, the trees around you, they start wilting and stuff like that, because the dragon's corruption or the dragon's magic is being drained from the area.
Okay.
So it's two sides of the same coin. Like in one point, yes, you free yourself from something. On the other hand, people didn't really thought about what the consequences would be. You've been living with these tyrants for 550 years. There is some kind of structure. And suddenly you're breaking through this structure, and the world now currently is trying to find a way to become something else. Like there are settlements being built, lords and ladies that consider themselves in some kind of royalty or at least very important people, and
like Udell.
exactly. He's a bit full of himself because we fought against dragons and stuff like that. But yeah, like leaders of big settlements, they start to get an ego slowly. Like landlords and kingdoms are starting to form. So it's a world that currently doesn't really know what it is anymore because it's lost structure. And there are places where things are going really well, like the Gotham Archipelago. Things are going really well there, but that's because they've had like a 10-year head start on everything else. Because their dragon has been dead for a long time. They hadn't have to deal with most of it for a long time, except for refugees who have been starting to build up new lives there. And they've had a 10-year head start. And most of the central of the continent, where Murkosh was killed in 555 AD, that's only been 21 years. Like, the first dragon was killed 42 years ago, and it would take 21 more years before the last one would be killed. So most of the central continent has been dealing with this a little bit longer. Like, on a time stretch of 570 years, 20 years is only a little bit, but it's enough of a difference to, have a real effect. And Murkosh, who was the last Chromatic to be slain, had basically, with his death, sounded in the Third Era, which is now in its 21st year. And in his final battle and his death, he would create what is now the Scorched Flats. It's a giant stretch of land that is now completely barren. In the process, he destroyed Eris's lair. Not intentionally, but he did it anyway. And in a final climactic battle, he was killed by Canrine, the Minotaur war leader, who now resides in Golan as its main protector in his final years. He's like between 60 and 70 years old now. He's like a very old man. And that's basically the story of our 10 Elder Dragons.
That's a quick one.
It was, yeah. Like, there's a lot more to talk about in what they did in the first era, which is called the Era of Fire. Like, the first expansions of their territories and stuff like that. But that's like a lot of unnecessary information and geographic locations, and
yeah, okay.
This is the
summarize
gist
for myself.
Yeah.
There were 5 chromatic dragons and 5 metallic dragons.
Yes.
Chromatic dragons were the black one, Sepulchrum.
Yes.
Was killed by his own army of dragonkin, mostly lizard folk.
Yes.
Then we have the blue one, Ulgur, was killed by a mountain collapsing.
Yes. By the hands of did I type his name in chat? I don't think I typed his name in chat.
I think you did.
Did I? Oh yeah, underneath Ambrose, Tesseri, yeah.
Yeah,
was a dwarven woman who sacrificed herself to bring Fulgur's lair in upon itself.
Yeah, and then we had Arborus, the green one.
Yeah.
Was killed by the elven tribes led by Gardenia.
Indeed.
Which means something along the lines of garden.
Something like that, yeah.
I don't have a cause of death for Galus, the white dragon.
Galus was killed by Wolnir, the storm giant who led his dwarven armies against Galus.
Giant.
And Wolnir currently is still alive, as he is the new dictator / tyrant of the Dwarven clans.
Iron. Tyrant. War. Then lands. And then we had Murkosh, the black one.
Murkosh is the red one. Sepulchrum is the black one.
The red one, yeah, sorry. The red one. I had red over here. Was the last one to die. He created the Scorched Flats, I believe.
Indeed.
He said. He was killed by the Centaur.
Khan, the Minotaur. Did I say Centaur?
Yeah, sorry.
Minotaur.
You said Centaur.
Did I? I meant Minotaur. Kenrin is a Minotaur.
So yeah, that's a stereotypical Minotaur with a big axe, okay.
Yeah.
Minotaur.
He created Discord? I don't get that one. Is that a joke I'm missing? Redalord says he created Discord.
I don't know.
I think it's a joke I'm not getting.
Me neither. But as established, I'm a boomer, so...
True. Akira is a boomer.
Dragons are good aligned mostly. We had Ahines, the brass dragon. Who basically held because he held his people with arcane magic. And that became fatally, died in his sleep when some of his people infiltrated his lair. Then we have Arum the bronze dragon. The inventor of the arcane turrets, cannons.
Yeah, exactly.
And he died in a test run.
He did.
The other ones...
That's kind of like you build a gun, like you're the first person to build an actual gun with gunpowder, and you're like, want to test this out, and someone just promptly shoots you in the head by accident. It's kind of like
that. And then takes all the rights to it.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and we had Arum the bronze...
If you would ask someone in one of the forts, like, who built these cannons, they will just come up with a name of a random artificer who worked on them because they deny that a dragon built them.
I figured.
Yeah.
That's why I made the joke, but...
Yeah, but it's true.
Then we have Aeris, the copper dragon, who is still alive amongst people. But not as in his dragon form, but shapeshifted.
Yeah, both Aeris, Argentum, and Arum are somewhere in hiding, and no one knows where. Like, they know they can shapeshift.
Yeah.
So they figure that they are living somewhere amongst humans. But no one is really sure.
And so, if you see a blind man...
if you see a blind man...
might be sneaking into Argentum, just so you know.
Like, you would... Like, every blind beggar on the corner of the street, like, are you a dragon? I'm gonna poke you.
Even kijken, weer. Some other people that were in these wars were... Chrysos, sorry.
Yeah.
Which were an elven fellow, first headmaster of Frostmourne Academy.
That's right.
Canbrin, the big Minotaur fellow with a big axe, as more. He was a leader of a warband against one of the dragons.
Yeah, he was one of the biggest war leaders on the continent at that point.
Yeah. And then we have Udel, the founder of Miothar, and also leader of a warband, but for one of the dragons, I believe.
Yeah, he was. They were very. When they were still ruled by Ares, they were like a very prominent figure. However, when Ares kind of disappeared because dragons started being killed, Udel kept up the armies and started leading them against the Chromatics. But he never Udel was one that believed that the metallic dragons were actually good in helping them, and he didn't want to go against them. He only led his armies against Chromatics, and he never led like a search party or a hunting party against any of the metallic dragons.
Okay.
And people kind of dislike him for it. But still, he has like a big grip on a lot of things in that area.
Or making some more notes for the other players.
No problem, no problem.
He led his warbrands into war with the Chromatic dragons.
Yeah, and he was joined by a very good friend of his, Arborus.
Arborus the Archmage.
Yes.
Friend of Udel. And the tribes in the Red Sea were like Switzerland, mostly neutral, only when the war broke out between two of the dragons.
They kind of they killed Hannes, and they were like, "All right, we've done enough. This is now our territory, the entire Red Sea. We will hold the border against, Fergus, Fulgur. Don't know why I said Fergus. Against Fulgur and Galus, who were like on their borders. They would fight against them if they would incur too much into the Red Sea, but otherwise they would just be like, you know what, we killed one, it's fine.
On themselves. Protecting its borders against Fulgur and Galus.
Indeed.
Yes, and then we have the Iron Mountain Dwarves who fought against Galus with a storm giant as the leader.
Indeed.
Wolnir.
He's the one. And he's a big asshole.
Sitting on he's now the new tyrant for the Dwarven clans in the mountains.
And he has a very awesome throne made of dragon bones. And I did a one shot with him once. I'm not sure if you were in that.
I wasn't. It was the Arakokra one, right?
Yeah, you did the monk one.
No, I did not.
No, Wolnir is the one I did where you had to go into the tomb underneath Ironforge.
Yeah, no, I was not in that one.
You were in that one.
Was I?
Who was in that one?
I wasn't.
I don't remember, but I did.
I believe Twan was in it and some other people.
That's possible. But in the campaign, which is in the 5th era, in the timeline where I do most of my one shots, I had a party go into Ironforge. Wolnir has been long dead by that time, and but something happened somewhere in there, like skeletons were coming out of it and stuff like that, and they went in there and found his tomb and promptly killed his resurrected skeleton body, which was fun.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that's like 500 or so years in the future. By that time,
all the dragons are extinct. Mostly all of the dragons are extinct.
Exactly. Like in the 5th era, where my other campaign is being played, there are very little dragons left. Those that are like bred in captivity and used as play pets and stuff like that. However, Dragonborn and Lizard Folk have started to rise up a little bit again, because finally persecution has died down.
Yeah.
But
my character in that campaign doesn't believe that dragons are alive because she hasn't heard of them.
Yeah, like dragons
She
are
knows about the
very
Dragonkin,
rare.
but
Dragons are very rare in that time.
I believe one of us knows of one dragon in that party.
Yeah, true.
Garruk?
Yeah, he does know of one alive dragon.
Yeah. And that's a big one.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But yeah, I believe he told us once about it, and my character would not believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Because those things died about 200 years ago.
Yeah, about I believe that campaign. It's now currently the year. In this campaign, it's 576. I believe that campaign is 1072 AD. So that's almost 500 years later.
Yeah, so she believes that all the dragons died, let's say, 400 to 500 years ago.
Yeah. But it's called Dungeons and Dragons. So one campaign I have dragons, and the other one I have dungeons.
That's very true. That's very true, though.
Yeah. We haven't done
multiple dungeons already.
Yeah, we haven't done a real dungeon yet in this campaign, but when the time is right and you'll find one, we'll do one.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I typed in chat like, we're talking about dragons, but we haven't talked about dungeons yet.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun part about playing two campaigns in the same world but on a different time.
Yeah, very true.
It's I have to think a little bit about what you guys are doing in this campaign. I have to think about. I don't want a railroad. I don't want to do that. If you want to explore the continent, whatever, of course you can. Mm-hmm. But of course, there are certain events that are bound to happen because they are historically accurate, whether you interact with them or not. And that's kind of the way I like to build up my campaign as well. Last week, Emily and Pip talked about how to build a one-shot. And somewhere in the future, I want to start talking about how to build up events in your campaign. How much could this party derail the other campaign? 0 to none. And because the reason why is because everything this party does, they are currently in a totally different area of the than the other campaign is currently in. So things they are doing now, it's not like very big events are happening. Like the other things with Horatio and the temple and the curse on Fort Castra. Those are things the other party hasn't encountered whatsoever or asked about. So if they would now ask me about it, yes, that's a thing that happened. It's part of history. Wait, no, it's not, because it's like a weird time thing. So no one is really aware that it happened except the party that is currently playing. And there are a few events that are bound to happen. Kind of depending on how the party interacts with it. I will not retcon anything. Like, for example, let's say this party goes to Ironforge and kills Wolnir. Let's say that. That wouldn't change anything for the other campaign, because Wolnir would have died eventually of old age or any other reason. I haven't established how he died for the other party, They haven't heard about Wolnir, they haven't been to Ironforge. But if the party in the future campaign would go to Ironforge and would interact with the things that are happening there, they would learn,
But
alright, there's a tomb here.
wait, we went to Ironforge, right?
No, you didn't.
It's a city with a big sinkhole in it.
No, that's Baldur.
Oh, that's Baldur. Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad. Also,
No
lots of
problem.
dwarves over there.
Also,
so...
lots of dwarves over there. Yes. So
okay.
it hasn't really been established in a way. Like, if they would now go to Ironforge, they would just learn that Wolnir is a giant there that died, and he was a tyrant there. How he died, no one is really sure because that was like 400 to 500 years ago.
There are a bunch of myths about it.
Exactly.
About it.
That's kind of the thing. There is a huge time gap between the two. So things get retold, and get blurry. And I will keep in the back of my mind, alright, I want to do this event. What kind of effect will that have on the other campaign? And if it's like really devastating, I would want to keep it in this one and then maybe have it like be separate timelines, like alternate universes. But I keep it in the back of my head, like I'm not gonna do some world-ending thing that can't be stopped, and then be in the other campaign like, yeah, guys, I was playing this other campaign and the world got destroyed, so this campaign is over now. I don't want to do that. That would be weird. But yeah, it's something I have to keep my mind on. But that's kind of what I do with my one shots as well, because they are set in the same timeline. It's not like I will create something that can either intentionally or unintentionally derail my other stories.
But are you gonna do one shots as well in this, like, how do you say that? In this part of the story, like in the current years of the party I'm playing in with.
I might.
Every other Monday.
I might if I come up with an idea that fits. Like a while ago, I did a one shot with a group, and that was like last year or something, and that was a group that went out of their way to kill a adult blue dragon, which was like a younger kin of Fulgur, and they actually met Ares, like in human form, and he helped them kill that blue dragon.
Cool.
And I was kind of in the same timeline as this, and there are like it's about 1,000 to 1,100 years between the start of Duskfall and this current timeline.
I'll be right back. I'm getting a call.
No problem. So there's like 1,100 years of history, and there are a few things that happened. Like at the end of the Fourth Era, there's a 100-year war. Every era has a name for itself, like kingdoms being established, stuff like that. So there's a lot to work with. Like, yeah, I did a one shot once that like took place in one of the more important battles of the 100-year-old war at the end of the Fourth Era. I did a one shot in that as well, where a party had to infiltrate an enemy camp and kill a war leader.
Okay.
So yeah, there's 1,100 years of history I can work with, so that's fun.
Very fun.
Yeah.
That's not how I do my one shots, though.
No.
I don't have a campaign to choose from. I started DMing in the, so to say, one shot era of the Game Force because I wanted to help the community out.
Yeah, I started DMing a little
Because
bit before that, but I didn't have.
because we had a shortage of DMs back then,
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, I can help, sure. I'll read up on the rule. I knew the rules already because I played in several in a campaign with Unique, and
yeah,
oh no, not yet, but
yeah. I
at
started.
least I picked up on the rules very fast.
Yeah, I started DMing like a small campaign group with my older brother. A little bit before the game force started with the one shots. Um, so because I started having this moment, I need a fix because that other group wasn't playing as much, and the one shot evenings were like a thing. Like, oh, I can do something with this, and out of doing the one shots, like starting with a small campaign, doing the one shots, and then starting two bigger campaigns, it kind of went back and forth. Yes, Red Alert, it helps having a lot of space and time between the sets. It does. That's kind of why I went. All right, I'm playing currently a campaign in the 5th era. What point in time can I pick where the actions of the party can't derail the other party as much because I have one player in the party because he plays in both.
There will be a second one.
Yeah, there will be a second one. He also plays in the other campaign. So I thought about that and I was like, all right, I can do pre-Duskfall, like in the timeline or in the time where the gods were still walking amongst humans, somewhere around the Divine War. That was one of the options I had. I had the option to do one during the 100-Year-Old War, which would be interesting, but would place it very close to the other party. And there's also a party member in the other group, two actually, who are old enough to know the 100-Year War, that were like born during that time. So that was a little bit weird as well. So I went with a point like, all right, I want to do something more with dragons, because it's Dungeons and Dragons, of course.
And in the other campaign, dragons are almost extinct.
Yeah, exactly. So I went with like a point in time. I didn't want to create like this giant tyrannical era where the players are like scared peeps because there are dragons ruling the continent. So I went with a little bit later, after the fall of the elders, in a world where humanity is trying to pick itself up after years and years of domination. So I went with that. I could have done like Second Divine War, but that would mean like epic levels of magic being possible as well. Because in official D&D lore, there is a point, I don't really remember names, but there is a point like 13 level spells are something that exists, but then there is I believe the spell plague or something. But there is a point where God is killed, and in some way the gods manage to like put a stop to how strong magic can get for mortals.
Yeah.
And that is how 9th level spells, being the highest level spell, became a thing. And I have kind of the same thing. We talked about it with the creation myth as well, where the gods decided, all right, this is where we stop. We make sure everyone forgets our real name. We don't want a third divine war to happen, and we'll just we'll put a break on it. Like years and years of darkness. People forget, like gods being forgotten and stuff like that, names mainly being forgotten, and then Duskfall, and where we are now.
Okay.
Like I could do something with the Second Divine War, and maybe if this campaign ever ends, or if I want to run a third campaign, I don't have time for that. But I think I want to do like a one shot or two in that era, because it's a very interesting like magic, even with 9 levels. is kinda for mortals is limited, and I kind of want to go with like, all right, what if there are no limits whatsoever?
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Bring your level 20 of character, make it
Yeah.
as strong as possible.
Yeah. And I'm also open, like, if one of my players is like, all right, I have an idea for a spell, and can I do that? And I'll like, all right, sure, we can develop a spell together and put a level to it, put a damage to it.
Like something with some kind of saving throw that just turns something into gold. Or
yeah, for example, like we have Hakan is a caster, Korkazin is a caster. Those are two casters of the party.
we have a caster and a health caster.
Yeah, but if
Kork
like
is a health caster.
yeah, if Kork is like, all right, I want to make a spell that like has the same effect as a basilisk's gaze but turns someone into gold, we can work something out.
Something like a touch of Midas spell.
Yeah, something like that. If he would come up with that, now that I've come up with it, I kind of want to make that spell, but
If we're brainstorming right here, yes.
But we can homebrew spells. That's okay. Like a lot. Big example. Second campaign of Critical Role. Caleb Widowgast, who is a wizard, he developed like 3 or 4 spells with Matthew Mercer. That I believe were also put in their campaign guide. And I'm open for that. If a player wants to create a spell, like I want to learn this spell for our next level up, can we develop something? I'm open to that. That's awesome. Like put a little bit of a touch of my players into the world as well. Another example, Critical Role is the only D&D stream I watch actually. Some others have been recommended to me, but I don't have time to catch up.
Issues, yeah.
Yeah, I can't catch up with 3 campaigns. The first campaign, Percy develops gunpowders and guns, which hasn't been heard of until that point. And in the second campaign, they are more prominent, because in the first campaign, a player decided, all right, this is something I want to do. Can I do that? Yes, of course. We can develop something. We can homebrew something. And like a lot of magical items that I hand out to my players, like 60-70% of them are homebrew items.
Yeah.
Like the music box of Calm Emotions, Corcusen found in the house, in Sinua's old house, is a custom item. Maybe someone else made it, I don't know, but I had this idea, like a music box, and you play a music,
it calms
people. Like, yeah, what would it do? Put a DC to it, make a thing out of it.
Just a spell Calm Emotions, right?
Yeah, it's just a spell Calm Emotions with a spell save DC built into the item itself. Yeah. And a lot of items are like that. Like
in the other campaign, we have a blinking dagger that if it hits, it just blinks back into your hand.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe it ignores a sea of shields.
You never told us that, but okay.
It might be on the item card. You have it, I believe.
No, I don't have an item card for that.
Oh. I'll send you one next time we play. I'll give you one.
Okay.
But I believe it ignores a sea of shields, and when it hits, it blinks back to your hand.
Yeah.
But before I went into this rant, I had a workshop once with a group of friends, and we had this like it was kind of how to build a one-shot workshop. We had this piece of paper, and they were like, all right, and that's kind of how I develop most things in my campaign, and for a one-shot as well. You have this idea, you work it out in a way that when a party does not interact with it, how does it play out? And that's kind of
Yeah.
the thing I do in my campaign as well. It's not like it's a static world. Like you're in the archipelago, only things in the archipelago happen, and the rest of the continent stands still. That's not what is happening. Like
And there are a lot of moving pieces.
there are a lot of moving pieces. So I
Even
come,
amongst the divine and stuff, I believe, right?
yeah. Like if
Because
I,
in the other campaign we play, I believe one of the patrons of our cleric just died or disappeared at least.
yeah, something happened to it.
Yeah.
Like he was trying to contact his deity, and he heard another voice in his head who was not his deity. Like, one moment, please. He is not available currently.
And that was the cliffhanger from our last session, I believe.
Yeah, that was around the same time. Yeah. So, but then Corona happened and group sizes, and we haven't played for a year.
But we're gonna play again in August.
Yeah, we are.
And I'm very ready for it.
Yeah. But yeah, things like, alright, things the party do have consequences, and if I come up with an event, I will work it out in a way that, alright, what happens if the party does not interact with it? And then I come up with like a few branches, like, alright, if a party does this, what will happen? If the party does this, what will happen? For example, if I decide there is a city with a mine underneath it, and in that mine they have captured a dragon to work fire for the furnaces.
Yeah.
The dragon, however, has been in secret trying to break his chains using his own fire, and is trying to escape. Now, what will happen if the party does not interact with it? The dragon, in like a few months, will enact his plan, escape, torch the city, and fly off somewhere. Now the party comes in. They maybe go into the mines, and they find this dragon. They talk with people. They have like an inspection or something. They interact with it in some way. They find out, ooh, this dragon is trying to escape, and they can do with it what they want. Or they find the dragon. They are like, I don't care. They start walking around town, and suddenly the dragon escapes. Because the party didn't interact with it, the dragon still managed to escape, but now we have another way for the party to interact with what just happened. And that's kind of the moving pieces, like things happen. And if the party, like for example, let's say I would have done this campaign during the Second Divine War. Things in that Divine War would still happen and would still have impact on the rest of the timeline, whether the party interacted with it or not. Like Galahad, the archdemon that is now currently chained to the elemental plane of Earth, he would still be chained. Like that would be something too powerful for the party to interact with anyway. Like we talked about Orion, the big ass dragon last time. Basically, if you would make a stat block for it, he would be on level with Tiamat. Like, you would need a very powerful party to interact with something with that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with a campaign. Like a one shot, it has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. And for me, I like to like incorporate it into my world in some way to make it like extra fun for myself and for players at my table. I can say like, all right, things you do have consequences for my players, and that creates an extra dynamic during the one shots as well, which makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, which mostly I play a lot at Nick's tables at the one shot evenings, so I know that already, but I have to be careful with what I say to other players.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in the campaign 500 years from now, we killed some luge lord, and the party doesn't know that.
Exactly.
We've spoken to him like a couple of days before he got murdered.
Yeah, and they don't know yet that he died. So when the cleric of the party who has sending tries to contact him, he will get in for a surprise.
That's true. He's in for a surprise.
Yeah, he sure is.
Lord is not available right now. Please leave a message after the beep.
Yeah,
Beep.
something like that. Like
Or
that,
his spell
that,
just not
that, that would
working
be like the
because...
second time he would try to contact someone or something and get like a dial tone.
Yep.
I think he would be like, "Are you doing this on purpose?" Like, no, you guys interact with weird stuff. It just happens. Like, actions have consequences.
But that fucker needed to die.
Oh yeah, he was an asshole.
He was an asshole to my friend. So...
Yeah, he was. But you know.
So four rogues paid him a visit, and that did not end well.
And the last one shot I did, Pip was at that table as well. It started off as a really bad joke, like 12-year-old girl,
Oh yeah,
a mute, a mute,
yeah,
a
like,
mute,
like
a
a
mute
mime.
pantomime, and a narcoleptic dwarf walk into a town infested by vampires. That started like a really bad joke. Like, I didn't know what my players would bring to the table, and when they brought those three characters, I was like, "What? What am I gonna do with this?"
The 12-year-old girl with
Yeah.
with a greatsword as big as her.
Yeah, like big Final Fantasy vibes.
Yeah.
That was one of the most fun one shots I've done in a while.
Yeah, and, but that is, I have so many crazy ideas for characters.
Yeah, same.
Like,
And that's why I like running campaigns, so I can put those characters in there.
and that's why I like the one-shot evenings, because I then just can play all those crazy characters once. Like, I have this Argentum called Gust and Hurricane. He's a monk.
Yeah.
Some other stuff.
How did that work out?
He's a monk with a way of mercy monk, but has gambling problems because of his mercy.
Nice. How did that work out? The vampire thing. So they went up to a chateau. Like, there was this town was laid deep in a valley, and every night, like, mist banks would roll over the hills and envelop the town in a creepy, spooky way. But during the day, the mist would just evaporate. It was just a normal town again. However, in the last 2 weeks, the mist didn't evaporate and just stayed. The lady of the land didn't come out of her home anymore, so they hired an adventuring party to investigate. They went up to the house, found the tomb, the family tomb, out of which one was broken open, which was the brother of the lady of the land, who turned out to be a vampiric spawn. And they killed him and found out that the lady of the land had been brutally murdered by him after she experimented on him to try and cure his vampirism. And after they left town, things became normal again. However, what they don't know is that what happened is that the progenitor of the house, like the person who first started this family, is like a higher vampire, and he rose from his tomb. So there was a very small vampiric incursion, but nothing really bad happened. However, it is set in the current timeline of like the campaign 500 years from this campaign. So there is now a vampire awake in that area, which is fun.
Oh yay!
Yeah, yeah, like vampires are like this classic fantasy trope thing. I like them. Vampires are just awesome. I like classic fantasy with like dragons and high level magic. But when I get the chance, like I have this weird idea. We'll try to incorporate it somewhere. So yeah. Sometimes I just come up with something and I'm like, I want to do this, and I'll just do it because I can, because it's my world.
Because.
Yeah, just because. And it's I think if you look at every D&D campaign, like most of them have like a town infested by vampires, or like a dragon in a mountain range,
Or the town that has a zombie plague, or something
exactly.
like that.
There are a lot of fantasy tropes that you can find back in any D&D campaign. It's just
A town that keeps getting attacked by goblins.
exactly.
A
I did
princess that a big city living with a princess in it that gets kidnapped for some kind of reason.
exactly. I did the goblin once. The goblin that kept attacking a town, but instead of goblins, I used gnolls.
Those are very nasty, I believe.
Yeah, they are. Like the party that went to that town, they managed like they were like they were level 5, I believe, 4 level 5 players, and they managed to kill a flint and 4 gnoll skeletons in a combat encounter, which was just ridiculous. That's kind of like a flint has a CR of 9, and they have like this mace that has like a paralyzing effect, a stunning effect, and like an extra damage effect that they can just hit 2 or 3 times with. And that's just combat economics, like the rogue getting a sneak attack off on the thing, and like CR.
It's getting paralyzed by
Yeah, exactly. Like
like
getting,
person, then getting sneak attacked.
yeah, something
Give a
like
crit.
that.
Then the
It's
paladin's
just,
coming in with a big smite.
yeah, exactly. Like CR is fun and all, but it doesn't consider combat economics.
Definitely
And
not.
that's
Like a couple of weeks ago, I ran a 3rd level one shot. I based everything off of CR, and there was one paladin in there, and he just
yeah,
murdered my boss.
yeah, crit smite level 2. Here's
Not even a
10d8
crit smite. It
damage.
was just a level 1 smite that just killed a what was it again? Hobgoblin in 1 hit.
Yeah, that's
Like it's a CR 1 point a CR, I believe, a half or more, a half, and there were like a couple of goblins in that fight, so
yeah,
it was kind of fair. But the
yeah,
part just managed to kill like 3 hobgoblins I sent at him, and 10 goblins, just because of good resource management.
exactly. And that's the one shot I just told about with the adult blue dragon. There were 7 players of level 5,
Mm-hmm.
and I put them against an adult blue dragon, which has area of effects attacks, it has legendary actions, it had lair actions. The only thing I changed was that I took away its legendary resistances, because I was like, you know what? It's gonna be a tough fight. Let's take away its legendary resistances to make it a little bit more fair. I kept its HP, I kept its legendary actions. On the first combat round, they managed, with a magical item they had, to grapple it and keep it in its place, and just started wailing at it. There was one party member. It was still a tough as nails fight. One party member died. 2 were unconscious, and of the 4 that were still standing, 2 of them were below half HP. So it was still a tough as nails fight, but because I took away its legendary resistances, they managed to grapple it round 1 and just surround it, and were able to keep it in its place and wheel at it. just on the first combat round. I was like, shit, what am I gonna do with this now? But yeah, that's fun. They were all surrounding him, and he was like, alright, 2 legendary actions. Wing attack! Everyone make strength saving throws, please. Yeah, that was still a very fun one-shot. There was like also a one-shot that lasted for around 10 hours or something. It was insane. We started around 12 a.m. No, 12 p.m. Like noon, and we had dinner around 6 and we had like an hour break, and we ended at about 11 or 11:30. So that was nuts. And technically, that one shot still wasn't done because they still had to go back to a place, and if they had to explore that place, they would encounter like a banshee or something. So there was an epilogue to it, but I decided to cut it because it was getting late. I was tired. We had been playing for 10 hours. That was very fun. And if you have a feeling like, all right, my party is killing my boss real easily, he summons minions, or this wave of enemies you just killed, well, there's a second wave coming.
Yep.
Like, players don't know what you've prepared. Like, normally this boss has 200 hit points. They are getting in really fast. Let's give it like 100 more.
Let's add a couple more, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this boss normally heals 10 hit points at the start of its turn. Let's make it 20.
Yeah, because otherwise, time management.
Exactly. But it's not like I create an encounter and I put in parameters like, alright, if it goes too fast or it's too easy, I will, after like the first or second combat round, I will edit this, but that's the only thing I'll edit. It's not like, alright, after combat round 4, it's still going too easy, I'll add more. I won't do that. I will assess first or second combat round, alright, this needs to be changed to make it more fun. Or a little bit tougher or a little bit easier. That's a possibility as well. Like, ooh, I'm killing my party members real hard. I will assess first combat round. After that, I won't change anything.
Yeah, I did the same in that one shot with the goblins.
I
was like, they one shot my boss first round. I'll send in some more bodies for them to kill.
Yeah, exactly. I did the one in Wolnir's tomb. They had a fight against Wolnir, and he has like these bracelets that gave him resistances. And the combat encounter was built around the fact that you had to destroy the bracelets first, and then you could kill him.
Yeah.
I just kept throwing hints like, alright, you're hitting him, but it's not really that powerful, and his armbands are glittering as he moves his arms. But sometimes your players just don't notice. So, but then they started using area of effect spells, and I was like, alright, his body doesn't get an impact as much, but his armbands, you see, they start cracking, and they were like, oh. And I was like, after combat round 3, and I was like, this thing is killing you. But I don't want to change anything anymore.
Let's drop one big hit now, like if they drop a fireball or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but that's the party that had like the magical goat with them, who turned out to be like a high level sorcerer, in like an area like it would have been a TPK if in the last area of effect spell, the giant managed to kill the goat form, and the sorcerer came out and he managed to finish off the giant. Otherwise, I am very sure that at least 1 or 2 party members would have died there.
Okay.
But that's something I had in mind as well.
There is a full one shot built on the parenthesis that a sorcerer was transmuted into a goat or a sheep. Sorry.
Really?
Yeah, there is a one shot called A Wild Sheep Chase.
Nice.
And that's just built on the fact that an apprentice used a wand of polymorph, a homebrewed item that can cast polymorph.
Yeah.
As the name suggests, with some things and attached to it, so too naked, not too powerful because it's true polymorph it casts. But the apprentice managed to do that to his master.
Nice.
And then the people you run the one shot with are sitting in a tavern, and the sheep walks in with a piece of paper in his mouth.
Nice.
That's a scroll of a modified scroll of speaking with animals, so the whole party can talk to the sheep.
That's amazing. But yeah, I had in mind with that encounter. All right, this is like the first big boss that they'll encounter that has area of effect damages. So there is a good chance that this sorcerer will come out of its goat form. So
Yeah.
I was okay with it being a little bit of a tougher challenge because I knew there was a failsafe on it with like this higher level sorcerer that then could manage to at least save one party member if things went really dire.
I'm gonna close some windows. I'm having bugs flying all around my apartment. I'll be right back.
Fun. So yeah, a lot of D&D is played by us. It's nuts. And now that Roald is gone for a moment, I can talk a little bit about my monsters next week. I'm still deciding on which monsters I want to use because they're gonna be monsters, and I was thinking like around bugbears or hobgoblins. So my players will be like monsters in a mine or a dungeon, and they will have to start setting up traps. When is it too much D&D? When is it too much D&D? I think when it starts affect like most addictions, when it starts affecting your social life in a negative way. Or
But
like
for me, it's affecting it in a good way because I make social contacts during these one-shot nights, and
yeah, that's true. Like it's a
play
very
with friends
it's a very
as
social
well.
thing, of course, but um if it starts getting in the way of things that you have to do,
Yeah, then
like if it gets in the way of work, or like I have friends outside of D&D as well.
yeah, I do too.
If you would like if you would like exchange one for the other, like um if I have friends who are like, all right, I only have time on Thursday evening, I will schedule them instead of like a one shot. It's like
Same.
we have enough DMs to at least fill out every Thursday evening. They are most of the DMs are like DMing every other week or every 3 weeks. I try to do every other week if I have the time. But I also work night shifts a lot. So planning social life, planning D&D, like when we were closed, I work in a casino. When we were closed for like the past 6 months, we started June 1st again. Finally, we were closed for 6 months, and I had a lot of time to like reconnect with friends and make new friends. And when we started working again, I was like, how did I manage this before we were closed? I have free time to like I have Friday evenings and Thursday evenings. I still do the things I normally did, like Friday night magic, one shots on Thursday. Um, but now I have this extra social circle, and it's secretly it's a lot to manage, really.
Yeah, I have the same problem. It's a lot.
Like working 40 hours in a week, running a one shot 1 week, running the campaign the other week, setting up this stream, the other campaign once every 4 weeks. I'm going to move soon. I rented a new apartment, which needs a new floor and painting, and it's so much. It's a lot, but I can still manage, and as long as I can manage, it's not too much D&D. Only when it starts getting too much and it starts to as long as it's fun, and if it starts to feel as work, it's not fun anymore. At least not for me. Like, the stream doesn't feel as work for me.
Yeah, for me neither. So,
and like,
I hope that's for all of us.
Yeah, and I mean, I hope there comes a point where we get affiliated, and our investment starts paying off. Because
But we need to stream more if we want to get affiliated.
Yeah, true, but we also need the 50 followers, so that's why we need 7 streams a month. We're currently doing 4.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of like, if I have a free Thursday evening, if the others are doing one shots, and I have a free Thursday evening, maybe I can do like, I don't know, campaign secrets or do homebrew things. But that would be an unscheduled stream. Like, the Monday evening is a scheduled stream, but maybe we can do like an unscheduled one sometime.
Yeah, maybe play some games, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for example. But for now, we'll keep it on the 4. Oh, Emily!
Hello!
What's up?
What's up?
Say hi to Emily in chat. Hi. So yeah, but for now, it's fun. And as long as we're having fun, we'll just keep doing it. And maybe we'll become as big as, like, I'm not gonna say Critical Role, because becoming as big as Critical Role is one thing, but like Dimension 20 or what's the British one with Mark Humes? I can't come up with the name. But
I don't know. I'm not into that kind of stuff.
But maybe
there's
one
one
day
D&D podcast I listen to, and that's about it.
Maybe one day we'll be a slice of the pie. Who knows? And until then, we're just a group of friends who have fun playing D&D on stream. And that's just as important.
Definitely.
So yeah. But I think we'll leave it with that for this evening. We talked about Elder Dragons. We talked about some other outside campaign stuff. Inside other campaign stuff, like one-shots and stuff. So yeah, we'll be back next week with episode 7 of our campaign.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so I will discuss with our new 5th player to finish up his character, so we can introduce him next week. And let's see where our adventure takes us next. I haven't really decided what I'm going to be doing next on building Aeternia. So if any of my players or someone in chat has a suggestion on what we can do next, make sure to send me a message. And until then, we'll see you next time, I guess.
Yes, goodbye.
Have a good evening, everyone.
See you next time.
Until next time. Good night.
Good night.